We were just joking in the background for everybody that's listening. Rachel's on a farm and a storm is blowing in. And so these are the joys of agriculture and real life. If for some reason she logs off, we're just going to turn off the camera and keep going today. But yeah, I'll turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Mandi, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be here today to get to know you a little bit better and to, be working with, everyone who's joining in. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm Rachel Berry. I'm the CEO and founder of the Illinois Hemp Growers Association. I'm a first generation farmer. I also work with the USHBA, the US Hemp Builders Association, and I work locally with the Illinois Stewardship Alliance too.
Okay, so I've got a question. I being in a role that started Hemp Association, and sometimes I think, what the heck am I thinking? What was your passion? What drove you to dive in to starting an organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, before I started the IHGA, I guess I could back up just a little bit further than that. I was not, like I mentioned, I'm a first generation farmer. So I was not born on a farm. I didn't grow up in a farming community. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, actually. So I moved out to a farm about 10 years ago now. And as I was kind of acclimating to farm life, getting my hands in the soil, learning how to grow food, I was also heavily invested in just getting to know my community and volunteering. So I worked with a couple non-for-profits before, working on the farm, working non-for-profit. And as I was growing and just, getting more acquainted with regenerative ag and permaculture and just growing plants in a more regenerative way, I came upon hemp. And just knew that this is the plant for me. This is the crop for me. Where I live in north central Illinois, there's a lot of corn and soy. I have a little over 13 acres that was grown corn and soy for many years before I took on the farm. And I knew I didn't want to be that type of farmer, which is great and useful. It's just not for me. So when I learned about hemp and being able to integrate hemp into what I was doing, I was all about it. And with that background of the non-for-profit work that I was doing, that really just fueled okay, here's the next best thing. Super passionate about it. I love to learn. And so I'm always, picking up books at the library and, like I said, engaging in community, learning new things. But hemp it was just a huge kick open the door, love of learning for me. And I just knew I have to take this further. And just one little part of that story, which I think is really interesting, I was doing some, community work, hosting little hemp education nights in my community. And it made it to the paper, to the local paper. And I was actually kind of scouted by the Illinois Small Business Development Center. A director saw me in the paper and was like, hey, what's going on with hemp? I want to have you in here. You need to start a business. I've been watching you for a while. Let's come into the office and we'll talk about it. And that's where the IHGA was born, in that office. What are we going to do? How are we going to move things forward? Let's start an association. And then funny story too, to add to that, yeah, exactly. And the woman that was helping me, her name is Stacy Mccaskill. She quit her job and is now a hemp farmer. So yeah,
Rachel.
I agree. Yeah, it was a lot of synchronicity there for her too. And, we stay in close contact now, and she's a big supporter of the IHGA, and yeah, kind of a cool story.
That's awesome. Awesome. So talk to me a little bit about what are some of the things that you guys initially discussed and how is it going when it comes to moving hemp forward? What were those key things that you decided or your team decided we need to really focus on in phase one of building this organization? Or is it focused more on the state? What does the state specifically need in order to move hemp forward?
It's all of it. Like when we first started the IHGA, we have this big plan. We're going to build a hemp mill. We're just going to put boots on the ground and just get it running and educate. That was the other big component of this, was education. And as all of us in the hemp industry know, things take a little bit more time than we originally might get excited for. So as the IHGA was building, we focused and still focus a lot on education and just community outreach, just making it known that these amazing products and farming techniques, all of this is available to us. But so we definitely, as many other hemp businesses have had to do too, pivot. There's been a lot of pivoting in the IHGA just toward what do our members need? What do our business sponsors need? What are the resources that people are looking for? And that has changed from year to year.
Uh-oh, we lost you. Dang it. This is the perfect joy of internet. Maybe turning off your video.
Okay, yeah, I turned my camera off. We'll
Oh,
see
there
if
you
that
go.
helps.
Perfect.
But yeah, I was saying IHGA, education, pivoting, switching gears a lot based on what the needs are of our members. That I remember now what I was saying. I was saying back in 2019 when Illinois started growing hemp, we had a lot of growers. So needs and education, things were just really all over the place. And that has really narrowed in. We see less hemp growers now. We see more interest in fiber and grain, which is really where my passion is. And just, yeah, really changing and focusing on what are the needs of our members as that changes. And it changes every year. We have less growers, they have specific needs, or especially when it comes to marketing and trying to find a space for what they're doing. How do I get our products on shelves? How do we find that manufacturer? How do we find that processor?
Right.
Yeah, things are just kind of always changing. And we do our best to stay in touch with great organizations like yours and many others that we work with, so we can provide people, the most up-to-date information, the most up-to-date resource. We may not have the answers, but chances are we know somebody who does.
What pain points would you say you're hearing the most right now from members?
I would say still marketing, trying to get products. I mean, farmers, like we see a lot of farmers in Illinois who integrated hemp into something, specialty crops, especially that they were already growing. I mean, we've seen a lot of success with people selling right off their farm stand, kind of building that business like right onto their property. But for those who may not have, access to that much land, or, they're leasing on somebody's land, trying to get their products onto store shelves, little
Mhm.
community stores, gas stations, etc. That's still probably the biggest challenge we see. Access to land, that's still a big challenge for folks. But yeah, there's always challenges, and like a lot of the work we do is very hyper individualized to who it is we're speaking to, especially, Illinois is a pretty big state. So what works for somebody in the north part of the state, or what resources are available in the north part of the state, may not be as available in the south part of the state. So just really focusing, we talk to our members all the time. We get on the phone, we see them in person, we visit farms, whatever we can do to just help you as an individual, do the best you can. That's what we're all about.
I love it. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about some of the work that you're doing with the Hemp Builders Association. Right?
Yes.
And what is that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious what the crossover looks like, or the focus really, especially in your region. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and like so I when I joined the USHBA, like one of my early experiences in the hemp industry was tiny hemp houses with John Patterson in Colorado, and that was amazing. I had so much fun. So and especially because I have a small farm, that was kind of my motivation was, well, if I want to grow hemp, I want to build with it too. I have animal housing. I live in an old farmhouse that will need, little updates here and there. So being able to use hemp that I've grown, I think that would be the bee's knees. So, bring in the USHBA. I'm all about hemp building materials. I was invited to join or run for the board of directors a little over 2 years ago now. And I started as the secretary and have now moved into being the director of regional leaders. So my job is basically to help each region leader, and I think there's 9 or 10 regions, and I think we're still trying to fill 3 of those. I'll have to look at my notes and figure out which ones those are, but helping those region leaders, get out into their communities and do some education, share the message, share the projects that they're.
Okay, so how do people get involved, or what is it that you're looking for as you're really looking to build both organizations, right? Who is that perfect fit for either US Hemp Builders Association or the Illinois? Who should be reaching out, and who are you really looking to get involved to help move the hemp forward? The mess.
Yeah, so from one hat to another, for IHGA, it's really anybody, whether you're a grower, a big farmer, a consumer. We have legislators who are a part of the IHGA.
Awesome.
Anybody who's interested in what the hemp industry can do, whether that's for them or their community, or just, looking just to learn more, we're a resource for everybody. And yeah, we enjoy that too. We've heard the stories are just, one of my favorite parts about working in the hemp industry. You meet so many people from so many different backgrounds, and all of our passion is drawing us in together. And it's very special. Like I said, just one of my favorite parts of working in hemp. And then for IHGA, I would say students, contractors, anybody who is in the building industry, let's see, architects, universities, all types of folks that are just interested in,
Yeah.
sustainable building materials. I know that there's a couple colleges out there that have special programs specifically for that. So, students especially, but really it's passion. It comes down to passion. If you are intrigued and passionate about what, the cannabis plant, all the amazing things it can do, there's a lot of organizations out there for you wherever you are, whether they're national ones or local ones, but there's a place for you. And volunteerism is so important. Not only does it help organizations, move the message and get boots on the ground, but it helps you as an individual develop so many skills. So I would definitely encourage people to, get involved with hemp organizations like IHGA or the USHBA or Global Hemp Association.
Mhm.
Definitely, because it's just, you can't get these insights anywhere else without being there.
Well, and there's such value to sitting next to somebody that's doing the same thing as you, right? What worked? What didn't? When did you outsource? When did you bring work in? When did you hire full time? What companies did you use? There's just a
Yes.
lot of value to being able to have that discussion and helping each other grow. And it goes both ways where we're in such a startup. Whether you know a lot or nothing, your skills from the other industry can be very impactful. And so I'm with you.
Yes.
The networking and the relationships are critical. Okay, so I want to move over real quick to the farming aspect. What drove you to become a farmer, right? This is hard work. And you mentioned before, land acquisition is difficult, or access to land is becoming more and more difficult. So I'm kind of curious from you, your perspective for members as new people want to get involved in hemping, in hemp farming. And then, yeah, some of your experience as you're new to do that, new to the farming.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm a relatively small farmer, and Illinois has a lot of really big farmers. So my experience is a little different. As I mentioned before, like I integrated hemp into the work that I was already doing. I'm a regenerative grower. So that means, the practices that I use are all about impacting the soil in a positive way, adding nutrients, adding life to the soil, keeping stuff we don't want out of the waterways, biodiversity, all of that good stuff. So, like I said earlier, or maybe it got chopped off, having all of the benefits of hemp, whether that be just the benefits to the soil or the benefit of having, something like a building material that I grew here on the farm. There's food too that comes off of that, and that really benefits me. It benefits my family. It benefits the animals that I raise. I raise ducks, chickens, and geese for eggs right now. So yeah, and like I grow right now, I've grown maybe a quarter acre max of hemp because I am using it all on my own farm. I don't want to get too
Mm.
ahead of myself and have too many processing hiccups. And maybe it's no secret that there isn't any hemp processing in Illinois. So there's nowhere that I can take that hemp and just sell it at this point.
Right.
So like for a big farmer, that's a little, it's like that chicken and egg thing. The big farmers say, well, where's the processing? And the processors say, well, where's the big farmers? I think that answered your question. I feel like I got off task.
Yeah, well, no, but you brought up another great point, right? Something that comes up often as I'm talking to either the investors or companies looking to expand and build processing, what is that scale that's necessary? And over again in our industry, we talk about, start small.
Hmm.
Encouraging farmers to start small to mitigate that risk by starting with a half a field versus all in. After I had a great conversation with somebody yesterday, there was some feedback given that it really depends on the farmer. What is their bottom line? What's their profit margin? What is a small to them may be a full pivot or a half a pivot, where others may be a couple of acres. So I'm kind of curious from you what you're seeing on that aspect of this go big or go home model, especially as we look at the demand or the need for things like biocomposites or insulation, door panels. construction materials, the wood just to replace a 2x4 or OSB board. So yeah, I'm kind of curious about where you see that playing out.
So the IHGA and myself personally always encourage, I'm agreeing with you, start small. Like we like to say, don't grow more than you can afford to lose at this point, no matter what you're growing. And people are starting small. We definitely see a lot more folks interested in growing even fiber and grain varieties this year. And they have their own plan for it. Pretty much everybody, nobody, I think that has been nice to see that kind of come to this point where in the beginning people were just like, I'm going to grow hemp. And I mean, we saw farmers grow hemp and have no idea where it was going.
Yeah.
And nobody's doing that anymore. Like everybody, it's gotten to the point where everybody knows, okay, we need to have a plan first. So that's been good that people are starting to experiment more. And like I know we need to go big, especially for big things like building materials and for fuel, et cetera, all these cool things that it can do. But I'm a big fan, as a small farmer, I like the artisanal market as well. Like you can make a nice product. Let's say you got sheep, you could grow hemp and make a wool and fiber blend that would sell pretty nice at some markets. So like there's a lot of opportunity, even though like the big stuff is in the works and kind of moving behind the scenes. And we have members who are involved in big projects and, they take time. But, don't let that we don't let that discourage anybody. Like there's a place for everybody, especially small markets. If you are a crafty person or you're interested in the food and maybe you can invest, on some machinery to press oil from seed or to hull the seed, it's a little bit of an investment, but we're open to consulting with you about stuff like that, about what's the best path for me. And we do a lot of that, even getting on the phone with folks who are like, I have all these big ideas and like, let us help you narrow them down a little bit and like give you some resources and more things to think about because you can get pulled in so many directions. But yeah, there's a place for small operations in my mind, definitely.
Well, I think we have an opportunity to recreate what has happened, right? I've shared this a couple times. I don't know if you saw the graphic. It was two M&M jars or two glass jars, and in one jar was an M&M where was full of M&Ms, and it represented the population. And then the other jar was maybe 5 M&Ms that represented the number of people that supply the global food. Supply the food that are in agriculture. And I think hemp gives us this opportunity to grow, there's so many ways to use it that it becomes an opportunity for all size farmers, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? Yesterday, when I was speaking to somebody, Dan just made a great comment, said, follow the money. Dan, yesterday we were talking about why do farmers grow and what is the reason that's going to get a hemp farmer to grow, and even going back to disease pressure. If somebody has disease pressure and they're growing wheat consistently back to back, rotating hemp in mitigates that or helps to reduce the disease pressure, and so or could potentially. And that may be what they need to look at that, to be that revenue bump or that change that makes it worth it for them. And I think that, unlike some of these other big ag items like soybean and corn, like you said, 1 acre of hemp can be used for animal bedding or feed or food or oil, or, there have been a couple of professors we've interviewed that are making diesel on their farm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that animal feed, for cattle, like and chickens and all of
For
that,
your
I think
own.
that's going to be huge, even
Feeding
for
just your
farmers.
own.
That's true. That's true. And we'll have to wait for the legality to be clear about, it's one thing if you're feeding your, like, in Illinois, I can raise my chickens and I don't have to have them inspected by the state if I sell them off my farm. So like that's one kind of workaround to feeding your animals hemp right now is sell them only off of your farm. But if you're someone who's raising cattle or, a lot of hogs, et cetera, you got to make sure you're feeding them, what's approved. So and until that happens, but when that happens, I think that's another big opportunity for large farmers to see, aside from like you were saying, if you're monocropping, a rotation of hemp will probably do you a world of good, whether it's pathogens or pests or erosion
Water.
or
Yeah.
losing your nutrients to the water, hemp can definitely help. And I just did a training where I got to meet some really awesome farmers in Illinois through the Illinois Farm Bureau called ALOT, Ag Leaders of Tomorrow. And just, we talked a lot about in that group, like a global look at agriculture. And it really helped me just get a bigger picture and understand more where these farmers are coming from. And some of them are, they're my age, they're in their young or mid 30s, and they're looking at taking over the family farm, and they really want to do what's best. But what's best has different meanings for everybody, like you were saying.
Yeah, well, and I think that that's just it, right? Hemp gets to play a role in each one of those situations. It just depends on what is it that they're looking for or what's the need. And then, real quick, I want to address this question because this is something that we get asked quite a bit. And this is a number that varies based on what we're planting for. Rachel, do you want to kind of talk to the number of plants per acre or per hectare that are being planted?
Yeah, that really just depends on the variety. If you're growing grain or fiber or cannabinoids, that's really going to depend. I'm trying to think what the big number is. I know I did
We
about 25. I planted kind of heavy this year based on what I did last year, and I did 25 plants a square foot. So maybe we can do some mental math, and that's
sure.
for fiber.
We
So,
did for our trials, we did 900,000 seeds per acre. Because the seed size varies, and I'll actually share a graphic on this post or on this video later, but the seed size varies drastically. So trying to move away from pounds per acre, to seeds per acre, because yeah, the Chinese
yeah,
varieties are twice the size of the seed. And so,
that's a really good point and a good question. Thanks for asking that.
yes, absolutely. I'm trying to see what else on here. Oh, this
Yeah.
is another great comment when we look at, and I'm curious from you, as we're seeing more production happen, where this competes. And I've heard from multiple farmers, either they're not planting this year due to drought or flood, or they're sticking with what they know in corn, soybean, wheat, or the other crops just because they know it less risk, easier to grow, whatever the reason being. So I'm kind of curious from you, the cost of rent per acre in Illinois or Iowa is pricing out hemp, too much competition with other crops. Unfortunately, need to look at cheaper land like the Dakotas. What you think?
That is fair to say. Land in Illinois is not cheap. It really
Right.
isn't. And that speaks, more to the access of land being difficult, whether you are renting it from a farmer or you're trying to buy your own land. It is not easy. And there are some organizations we work with, like the Prairie Liberty Foundation, who are working with people to help figure out what their options are. So we definitely recommend them for anybody in Illinois who's looking to learn more about land acquisition.
Mm. I think this is such a critical part. And I know this is something Hector's working, on a lot is getting access to land and access to farming for those that are underserved, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with cannabis. We have Black, brown, indigenous farmers who have been strategically ignored and left out by the USDA when it comes to, you know, acquiring land or even having land taken from them that has been in their family for a long time. So we have that, and then you mix in cannabis with it, and all of the work that we need to do to repair those relationships. I think there's definitely a big need for something with hemp to help new farmers, especially underserved communities. And it seems like a no-brainer, but there's always so many, the politics back and forth of it. In Illinois, we have
So, Rachel, I'm kind of curious, are your organizations, you had mentioned one, that really assisting in this. What does that look like? I feel like this needs to be a focus in whole, especially from, say, the farming organizations and or Global Hemp Association, is resources to help other people acquire or get access to land. What focus, I guess, are you guys doing outside of the one?
That's a good question. How is the IHGA helping folks to access land? Is that your question?
Yeah, or are those types of things becoming more and more critical? As
Yeah,
we're
that has been a highlight in the work we've done since the beginning. And to be honest, at this point, we generally we'll give you the resource to the groups that we work with who specialize in this. And we work back and forth because they don't know about hemp and the hemp regulations. So we come in to help folks understand what you actually need, because if you're going to rent hemp, that's, even if, especially if you're going to rent it, making sure you have permission from the property owner is like another step that you would not have to do if you're just growing tomatoes or corn or soy or whatever. So really, like, when it comes to that work, we work with other organizations to provide the resources that folks need to get their specific need met.
I think this needs to be something that, I mean, it's something we talk about a lot, but almost that toolbox, that anybody looking to get into hemp has, that here are the tools that we can give, or in just agriculture in general. So yeah, I think this is a great point. And I would love to continue this conversation, or even do a Q&A with some of those organizations, as resources, help to drive business to them as well as resources to our members collectively.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great opportunity. I'd be interested in that as well.
For sure.
And I wanted to drop quickly, if I could. You were mentioning like having, a toolbox. And I am working with the Illinois Stewardship Alliance to kind of put out kind of a toolbox, so to speak. But it's really a guide, an Illinois hemp regulatory guide that has tips and tricks and things to consider and steps to take, all of that stuff. It isn't out yet, but it should be out soon. When that link is available, I will make sure to share it. But we are working on, such a thing specific to Illinois.
I like that. I think that this is, yes, I like it.
Okay.
There've been a couple of really great, and I would love to share when it does come out, share it through our link or our channel also, so that people that are looking for resources in your area know where to go and who to contact. So I would love to support there as well. Okay, so can you talk to me a little bit about some of the differences you've experienced in the fiber versus grain production?
Sure. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that my soil tends to like growing fiber more than grain. And that maybe the inputs for the grain are a little stronger to get those seeds really going. But I use, animal husbandry and animal waste in my rotation. So that's been working out really well for us. If folks aren't using animal rotation in their growing, I highly recommend it. And that's one of those regenerative ag practices. I feel like they're both very similar to work with. Aside from having to harvest that grain off the top, they grow very similarly. The density is pretty similar. I like growing both of them. And I use both of them equally. So
Yes.
I like to grow both. That's kind of nice. I can grow the dual type, or I can grow, plots of each. And yeah, I really enjoy growing it, not just because it's useful to me on my farm, but because it's just beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I'm really getting more and more interested in the dual crop, right? Especially as we're starting to see the grain market open up a little bit, or this push for it to open. So I'm really excited to see how that works out for quality of fiber and what end products it goes to. Hector had a great question also. Can you give us some ideas on how we move legislators to advocate for more acreage to give for hemp farming?
Well, my first piece of advice would be to know your legislators if you don't already. Start building a reputation and relationship. That's the word I was looking for. A relationship between the two of you. And, if you have others who are also passionate about this, bring them in. The more people we have speaking to their representatives about this, the better. I do have a tool on my website on IHGA.com that is how do I get to know my legislators? Like, what are the steps I take? How do I frame a conversation? And we're happy to help with that as well. If there's ever an opportunity or a need for the IHGA to join for discussions like that, we're always open to helping our members, get those conversations going. And then just having specific asks too. Like, if this is the topic, this is what I want, being specific with what you want is a good place to start. And my own experience with my representatives, they are very helpful. Once you get those conversations going, you give them, like, maybe I know I've given a book, I've printed things out, I send links. Helping them really develop their understanding of the industry is going to go a long way.
What great tool. Another great resource. I love the outline, or that. I would love to link to that also to help promote and share. Great tool. Dan, I agree with you. There are some great resources and grants, just kind of going back to OSU's processing. Jeff Steiner's done an incredible job at OSU at both securing funding as well as some of the progress they're making. I don't know if anybody remembers, but in OSU is where they came out with some data that CBD may actually help to fight COVID, or cannabis may help fight COVID. And so it'll be interesting to see what continues to develop as, their program is definitely putting a mark on the map. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to hear from you as well, Dan, and anybody else. If you guys have great people that you're connected with or that are doing fabulous things, both Rachel and I would love to meet them, would love to help connect them and plug them in and highlight them here on our podcast. So please send over intros or let me know. I would love to get to know them and also introduce them to you or to our other members. And so, John, I also see you're on. Thank you very much for joining. Hemp is a must-have tool for the toolbox to control weeds and helping more farmers transition to regenerative organic. Rachel, you want to speak about regenerative agriculture and how hemp's playing a role there?
Yes, absolutely. I could not agree with you more, John. I use hemp for weed control on my own farm, and I think it is definitely going to be a big transition. Again, it's just that education. There's a lot of farmers, monocropping, or there's even farmers who are already doing regenerative ag, and they don't even know that hemp could be very beneficial to them on their journey. With the remediating properties, you can pull all that gunk out of your soil if you've got it. It's
Weed
Yeah,
pressure,
it's an
right?
amazing tool for weed pressure. I
Yeah.
think my most successful weed pressure story I have is getting rid of some Canadian thistle, which is pretty gnarly stuff. But that hemp, it outpaces it, it outgrows it. It's a biannual, so it comes up the second year. So, you got to keep an eye on it, make sure that it actually is working. And that's been and I mean, grass too, keeping the grass out. Yeah, I've had a lot of luck with weed suppression, definitely, personally.
How do people get in touch with you? For those that maybe weren't on earlier, how do people reach out?
Sure, yeah, email is best. That's Rachel at
Mhm.
illinoishga.com. But you can also reach me through LinkedIn. I get those messages. That's fine.
Perfect. Perfect. Perfect.
Social media, a little trickier, but LinkedIn I can work with. But a direct email is absolutely the best way to get in touch with me.
Oh man, I need to figure out, I need to learn from you better email organization. My emails, I'm so far behind. So if anybody out there has a message in my inbox, I'm getting to it today. That's my focus. It's
Yes.
cleaning up my emails finally. Rachel, anything else that we should chat about? Anything that maybe farmers or, people within the industry should be focusing on?
Just building community, getting out there and showing up. I think that is a
Yeah.
good takeaway. Yep. Just get out there. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We're here to support you, and we'll be happy to meet you.
Yes, absolutely. Perfect. 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 Okay. Well, I want to give a shout out. Thank everybody for joining. I really appreciate your guys' time, comments, but also go to our friendsofhemp.org website and get one of our Moving Hemp Forward Together t-shirts. They are printed on hemp. They're black. They're awesome. I would love to get you one, Rachel, if you'll send me your address. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I would love it. And then when you get them, take a picture and send it to us. Show it to us while you're in the hemp field or doing your work. I love seeing them pop up on social media and it's awfully exciting. So, but all of the proceeds for that go directly to support our fiber trials and grain trials. And so your contribution really does support. As you all know, research isn't free and it's expensive. And so we're trying to really contribute the best that we can and get the most for our money. And so any contribution helps. Also, we have a dollar for dollar match right now. And so you double your donation when you do get on and donate from the Friends of Hemp website. $100, $25, $500, $1,000. It will double dollar for dollar. So just shout out there. But Rachel, anything else that I can do specific for you? I would love to meet you. I can't wait to meet you face to face and shake your hand. But yeah, anything else?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mandy. I will definitely get you all of those links. I appreciate this so much. This has been really fun, and I can't wait to meet you in person either. It's going to be so great.
It will be fun. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors and a huge thank you. We had a brand new sponsor come on, Fiber X. For those of you that don't know them, check out their website. They are also going to be processing and doing some pretty big things and expansion. So I will make sure that we get them on for an interview as well. But thank you to them for our new seed trial sponsor. For anybody else that's interested in trial sponsors, getting data will be released to our sponsors for all of our trials by the end of this year. So gives you a pretty good leg up on, what's what and what's been happening. So if you guys do have interest, don't hesitate to reach out. Other than that, Rachel, thank you very, very much for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much again, Mandi, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time. Thank you very, very much.
All right, take care.